Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for November 13th, 2023. For those of you who want to watch along at home and follow our agenda, you can go to our website, which is livoniapublicschools.org. You can highlight over the Board tab and drop down to Board Information, and you'll be able to find our agenda. For anyone in the audience, our agendas are out the left door and to the right. You'll also find the blue slips out there for anyone who wants to address the board. As I indicated, this is our Committee of the Whole, so if you tuned in to hear the nitty-gritty and the questions and the explanations for the items that will come before the board for a vote, this is the meeting that you want to watch. If you want to go back, you can also find Committee of the Whole meetings on our website, and I encourage you to watch those as well. One of the things that we always follow here is our community with character. And one of the attributes that we hold very highly is respect. Respect for each other, respect for our community members, respect for our students. We don't always agree here at the board table on items, but we do respect each other. We listen to each other's viewpoints, and we're very respectful of each other. And you have our commitment that anyone who comes before the board will have our respect, and in return, we ask that you show respect to the board as well. We find that's the best way to teach our students and our young people is to live that attribute. As I said, this is our Committee of the Whole, and our first item is item 1, which is our audience communication. I do not have any blue slips, so we'll move on to item 2, our Committee of the Whole. I don't believe we have anything under Committee of the Whole tonight, do we, Superintendent Oquist?
We do not, President Johnson.
Thank you. That moves us to item 3, our Finance Committee, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Bonifield.
We have no items under Finance Committee.
We do not.
Very good. We'll move on then to item 4, our Curriculum Committee, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Acosta.
Thank you, President Johnson. We have 2 items this evening. Our first item, 4A, is Sex Education Advisory Board, and we have Mr. Itu and Mrs. O'Brien.
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. Mr. Itu is running late this evening, so I am going to step in, and I'm going to share a little bit about our Sex Education Advisory Board, which is something we have had in our district for many years, but Mr. Itu and his physical education and health teachers are restarting it with a new group of leaders. And so I just want to share a little bit about what they do and who makes up that team. So there's one person who leads the group with 2 co-chairs, one of them needing to be a parent who has children in our district right now. Additional parents, both employee parents and non-employee parents, and then educators, a health professional, and a clergy member from our community. So as Mr. Itu creates the team and works to make sure he has to have those required participants on that board. When we've had it before, we've always had to follow these same guidelines. We're just re-upping and renewing this group of people. And what they work on is they establish the goals and objectives for the district curriculum. They review materials and methods of teaching, and then they make recommendations to the Board of Education of what that curriculum would look like. They evaluate, measure, and report on the goals and objectives every 2 years on how we are doing with teaching our students that curriculum. So that is what he is getting started with his second. This is a secondary group of teachers and parents.
It's required by law.
Yes, it's required by law.
Mrs. O'Brien?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you let us know just how can parents get involved to be included? I don't know if it's now, sorry, and I missed out on the study session. Probably this was shared.
The co-chairs of the committee will work with Mr. Itu and Ms. Adams, who is our content area leader for physical education and health. And so they will look for a representative group. If there is a parent who is interested, they should reach out to Mr. Etu, and he would be happy to take them into consideration. So again, we will have some staff parents and some non-staff parents, but parents need to make up at least 50% of your committee.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Mrs. Burton?
Mrs. O'Brien, again, we talked about this in the study session, but for those who may not have been there, again, this is, the composition of this group is required by law.
Correct, state of
Okay.
Michigan.
And this is the same group, not in terms of names, but roles that has been in place for many, many, many years. And we
Yes.
just took a hiatus during COVID.
Yes.
Because we were not meeting face to face, and we are now starting this back up again. So this is not anything new. This is
Nope.
just reinstating a committee that has been formed for, it's been going on with this kind of composition, to my knowledge, for at least the last 30 years, because
Yeah.
I remember hearing about it many, many, many years ago, and continuing to hear about it throughout the years.
Yes, we are just restarting the committee with new members. And so we've always had a sex education advisory board, and you've always had to follow state law on who's on it and the process for that. We're just restarting it with new members, but we still have to follow those same guidelines as to who is on it. So the chair's a parent and a staff member, parents, employees and non-employees, educators, a health professional, and a clergy member from our community.
Okay. And we are not necessarily looking at changing our curriculum.
No.
We are just reviewing what we have and
Correct.
making certain that we are comfortable with what we're teaching and that it is the best curriculum out there right now for our goals and objectives.
Yep,
Okay, all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
President Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. You said this has to be done every 2 years, did I hear that?
Nope, so I'm reading on here, and Mr. Etu would know better than I, but part of the process of this committee is to evaluate, measure, and report on program goals and objectives at least every 2 years. So they will review our process for teaching the material and then report out to us.
And how often do they meet?
They haven't started yet this year, so I'm not sure how often they're meeting this year.
It will be a time-limited group, so it won't be ongoing over several years.
Right.
They'll meet for probably half a dozen times, review the curriculum, review the materials. I remember the last time this group worked, they found some of the videos were quite dated. And just the overall lexicon, the verbiage that students were using in the video, even some of the clothing and things just seemed outdated. And so they sought out additional resources that are either provided by the state or available within the health curriculum that matches our standards. And so they'll look at the curriculum, the materials and resources, the assessment, and then make a recommendation. And if there are changes to the curriculum, this is one of the areas on which the board would need to vote.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll bring Mr. Etu will bring a report to the board once the committee has gotten their work underway.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Burton?
And when students do have a unit on sex ed, it doesn't happen every year, but as far as I remember, and I think it is still the same, there's always a parent meeting ahead of time.
Yep.
And parents have the option to review the curriculum, to attend the meeting, hear about it, and review the curriculum themselves before the
And
student-
opt out of having their child participate.
Okay.
So we have a parent meeting, review the curriculum, they can watch the videos, and then they also have the opportunity to opt out of that
Okay.
unit of study.
Okay, without any penalty to their
Yep,
student?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to item 4B, personal finance graduation requirement.
Thank you. So I wanted to bring to you last month's Committee of the Whole. We talked a little bit about changing our science graduation requirements. And this month, I wanted to share with you some changes. The state of Michigan passed a requirement for all districts to offer a personal finance course, a half credit in personal finance. And the way the state rolled out these standards, so they created a whole separate set of social studies standards. We knew they were thinking about this and having meetings about it. People wondered if they would be math standards or social studies standards, but when the state listed the standards, they still remain under social studies. Those standards are already a part of economics and are already taught. They've been lifted out of economics and set as a standalone unit or course by the state of Michigan because they felt like they wanted to have a focus on those personal finance standards. So at study session, we had some conversation about that, and the next day was our professional development day. So I met with our economics teachers. They were 150% supportive of they already teach those standards. And in fact, that last one, we talked about a little bit about taxes, that seemed to be more heavily focused on in the personal finance standards. And they showed me multiple places they already teach those standards. One of the questions you asked was you wanted to make sure that it had a good, intense focus, that if we are going to recommend personal finance be a part of economics, that it would have the focus that it needs. They said that in a semester-long class, it's more than half, but not quite 3/4 of what they teach. And they do have a unit assessment already, but they would want some time to make sure that they felt that that unit assessment hit everything in the way the new 6 standards were kind of pulled out, because we would want to say a student has to pass that CSA in order to get that personal finance credit. They felt that they could do that it fit what they already do. They don't teach the math of personal finance. They don't teach how to do your taxes. So that would be still that math class of financial literacy that students could take as an option, but this is understanding all of those personal finance and how important they are to your life. And that is a big part of what they do in economics. So Mr. Itu and myself are recommending that we keep personal finance in economics, but students would meet the state requirements for both the required economics course and personal finance within that one course. And so that is our recommendation. This would come into effect for this year's 8th graders. Mrs. Rousseau, who is our social studies and ELA curriculum coordinator, feels like they would want to spend that time looking at the CSA and making sure that they have that in place for students. And then Mr. Itu and I would want to spend some time, what does that look like on a transcript or even listed as our graduation requirements, to make sure that our students, it's visible and people can see that we have both economics and personal finance, even if we offer it only within one course. And so we would not want to change our board policy quite yet, our graduation requirements, and get some time so that we could explain what we want that transcript and that course of study to look like for students with those new changes.
So just a point of clarification.
Yep,
So financial literacy is a separate course from personal finance.
correct.
Mrs. Bradford.
Thank you. Will the assessment be, is it the state that sets the assessment, or did the teachers set the assessment?
It would be one of our CSAs specifically for personal finance that students would need to pass in order to earn the personal finance credit.
It would be a district assessment.
Yeah.
It would be the same at all
All-
3 high schools.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Burton.
Mrs. O'Brien, the state sets the standards.
Correct,
And then the district sets the assessment to meet the standard.
correct.
Okay.
We choose our own curriculum. They set the standards, we choose our curriculum and our assessments. So we'll be using our same economics curriculum, making sure that we hit those standards like you asked, with intensity to make sure that students know those things, and then we'll make sure that CSA aligns with the standards and our instruction.
Okay. And after your conversation with Mrs. Russo, and from what you know of the curriculum prior to this, the one econ course is enough to cover the economics standards and the personal finance standards, because half of econ, if not more, is already personal finance.
Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly what they said to me. So I went to our professional development day and they said, so we already do this. It's a little more than half of what we already do.
Okay.
This is not new for us, none of these standards.
And it's interesting, several of us, well, our entire board attended MASB conference sessions and classes over the weekend. And this was discussed at one of them. And the presenter, who was from the Michigan Department of Ed, indicated that there was great frustration with the legislature pushing this forward because she said, it's already in the economic standards. And really, it was, she said it was almost like it felt like to her like it was being done for show. Because the content was already there, the standards were already there. And our kids, since economics is part of their required courses, they're already getting this.
Correct.
I'm glad that folks are paying attention to it, but one of her points of emphasis was this is nothing new. This is simply going to look different on a piece of paper now, but the standards are not different.
Correct. That's exactly what our teacher said.
Okay.
And I believe one of our teachers created a crosswalk between the two.
She did.
Of the current econ standards and the personal finance standards. And really, in some cases, word for word, they existed, but they were certainly all contained within. Yeah.
And then is econ is a requirement?
Correct.
It is.
So it's already a required course?
So we
Yes.
don't have to
Also-
add requirements to our students.
All students take econ.
All
Correct.
students must take econ for graduation.
Yes. So you brought up at study session that AP Econ, and they also felt like that it's already in AP Economics also. So the teachers, I mean, they just said, so personal finance is a part of economics. It's what economics looks like for you and I, and that's what we teach. That connection between global or national to personal, that's what we teach kids.
One other thing.
Go ahead, Mrs. Burton.
The other one or two courses that are taught at the high school level regarding personal finance, I think one is managing your money or something along that line.
And financial literacy,
And financial,
our
right.
math course.
Those may or may not continue to be offered. Like, are we offering those, or are we still in discussion about that?
Nope, so our plan is to continue both of those. One is in the area of business, one is a math course. But this would give us an opportunity to look at that curriculum and maybe if there was pieces of the social studies that they're going to get in economics, we could take those out and then lift some of the other things that we're doing. Personal finance is more of managing your money, well, they're both managing your money. So your finances, your debit card, keeping track of how much you pay, what your taxes are, all of those things. So both of those classes are very similar. And Mrs. Caldwell, our math science coordinator, thought this would be a great opportunity once we've got our plan for personal finance, then to look at those two electives and say, what should we update in those two classes? Because they are very popular, fourth year math class. And so make sure that they're very relevant to our students today in 2023.
So it sounds like what we have right now, as of today, is that the concepts are taught in economics. And the managing your money is more putting the numbers with it and playing it out. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our curriculum committee report.
Thank you, Mrs. Costa. That'll take us to item 5, our Building and Site Committee, and then we'll turn it over to our chair, Mrs. Burton.
Thank you. We have a number of items under Building and Site. The first is item 5A, PMR Quarterly Dashboard Report for the third quarter, and we will welcome Mr. Francis and Mr. Weber. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. We do have a few items this evening, so right now what we'll do is, here, I'll get you started on this side. Come on this way.
You're welcome.
It isn't one, it's always got one sheet. We're good. So it is time for our quarterly dashboard. This is something that I know the board looks forward to and wishes only 4 times a year wasn't enough. But in all seriousness, this is a great snapshot for the board and the community to see how our finances are going through our 2021 bond initiative. We've gone through 2 summers thus far, and we are still closing out summer of '23 work. And we have already turned our attention, and you'll see in this evening's agenda, we have the summer of 2024 on the docket for, running through board information and hopefully next week at the voting meeting, board approval for the summer of 2024. So we keep moving forward. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Weber, Plant Moran Real Point owner's representative, and he will go over the dashboard with you as he generally does.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us again. Everybody's favorite night. I'll walk you through this as we typically do. We'll start on the left-hand side, discuss some of the content there, and then work our way over to financials. So top left side is our bond program goals and objectives. These are initiatives we had in the bond marketing campaign and everything, just to keep our focus on what the goals and objectives and key points of this program are. So those stay stagnant and make sure we're following those as we're marching along year to year at each of our packages. And then rolling through the critical items, continue to monitor ongoing construction and manpower needs. We do have good news. We're at a point where now we're getting a little bit more predictable with our costs and pricing. The economy is still very strong, so construction industry is still booming. A lot of school bonds, a lot of work downtown. So we are working with that to make sure we can still get participation trades, and we are at a stretch for manpower and everything. Just with anything right now, the economy is still busy in this area. So keeping an eye on that and trying to adapt and overcome as we can. Another critical item is, as you all are aware, the classroom air conditioning issues. We've had teams working night shifts the past couple months here to try and resolve what we experienced in late last September, or ending the last semester. We do have a solution in place, just a matter of implementing it, getting classrooms put back together and make sure that we can avoid similar issues next cooling season. So that is still on the forefront of everybody's objectives. And then, like we always like to push out, is close out of existing jobs. We still have those 22 issues with the air conditioning, but aside from that, the 22 projects are wrapped up. We have 2023 punch lists are established. We're trying to get closed out and out of those buildings as soon as possible. Same with the LCTC robotics. Punch lists are established. Teams have been out there sneaking in and out and trying to get those projects wrapped up timely and get out of everybody's way, but making good progress on those as well. And then obviously keeping our eye on the prize with our early childhood center, and then rolling into 2024 projects. We'll start phasing and scheduling all that work and get in touch with the building staffs, but make sure our forthcoming projects are started and completed on time.
Speaking of the early childhood center, it is coming along. I know if some of you have said you've been driving down Newburgh Road and craning your neck to look over that fence to see some of it. It's really looking sharp. Not too long ago, Mrs. Oquist and I took a little walk through with Mr. Weber and walked through the inside of it again. And we'll have a little bit later in our agenda the furniture and some playground equipment on today's agenda, so you'll get a little peek of some renderings of those items. So it's still very
Windows,
exciting for
bricks.
everybody. Yep.
Brick is coming on the outside.
Yep.
The windows are being installed. It's starting to look real.
Yay.
And then finishing on the left-hand side here, just the program phasing. So we're technically in phase 3 now. We try to do phases by year, so we'll break them out by bid pack. So rolling through 2022, 23, and into 24 is our phasing. So just keep an eye on that as a little snapshot for everybody to understand how we're moving along. Moving into the fun part now that everybody loves our chart, but we will, I'll give our typical summary of what our columns are, highlight some of the data that's important. We won't hit every line, but feel free to ask questions as needed. So column A is current budget, broken out by professional services, site costs, regulatory, and many other items as we monitor the budget. That's how we track those costs. Column B is the current contracts and purchase orders. So that is anything that's been brought to the board, approved purchase orders or contracts, or any miscellaneous other work that's been committed, signed and executed is column B. Actuals paid are the dollars off of those contracts that have been approved and sent out. Remaining cost to complete is column D. That's just math between columns B and C of how much remains that has not been paid from actuals paid. Forecasted contracts and purchase orders for column E. Those are ones that have not been signed yet, but we are looking ahead knowing there will be more contracts, so we don't want to leave that out there as an unknown. So we look ahead and forecast what those costs may be. Column F is our unallocated reserve. So you'll see at the bottom, there's $2.9 million there. That's our owner contingency for anything may come along. We have cushion there to adapt to as needed. So we keep that contingency there. And then our column G would be our over and under. So right now, we're forecasting at 0, which means the full $186 million plus some earned interest that I'll talk about now is being forecasted to be spent. Touching base on, at the bottom of column A, so current budget, our bond program is $186 million. But if you slip down to the cash flow and finances, you'll see some good news here. Actuals earned for earned interest. So under Series 1, you'll see $1.6 million. That's on the second row. And then $1.8 million for Series 2. So that totals $3.4 million of earned interest. Being that we've received those funds, they're sitting in an account right now accruing interest. So those are actual dollars in hand. There's potential for more that will come down, but we're just forecasting only what's been received to date. So that's where our 189 comes from, is the 186 plus that $3 million. And then one more to note, in our construction line item, I'm jumping back up to the big table. We had actual paid at the bottom, at the bottom is $83 million for the total actuals paid. The last time I was in front of you, given the summary update, we were about $62 million. So there's been about $21 million spent, which is good progress, good construction, and other items being completed, work completed and work being paid. So it's a good sign that things are continuing to move along at a good pace here.
All righty.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah,
I know there's a
questions,
lot of info
comments?
here, so I can touch base as needed.
No, doesn't look like it.
Alrighty.
Terrific, thank
So I
you.
just want to point out, just so that, in case you have that question, under the current budget, as Mr. Weber said, under the grand total on the top, it's 189,468. And so sometimes we may get that question, if we passed a $186 million bond, why are we allocating out 189? And obviously, that's earned interest to date. That number will fluctuate depending on what we continue to earn and then anything we earn off of Series 3.
Excellent. All right. Next item is this, item B, excuse me, sinking fund owner's representative amendment.
You're getting a hard copy of, I believe it's also in your packet, though. This is the amendment. And attached to that are a couple of pages that Plant Moran Real Point has created and added in. And I'd like to ask Mr. Paltero to come on over to the table, if he wouldn't mind. That's what the chair is for. This was an item that is in your board packet. Mrs. Smith had written up a memo. She's under the weather today, so I am filling in for her on this particular topic. As a little history for those who might not remember if they're watching from home, Livonia Public Schools had engaged with Plant Moran Crest at the time for the 2013 bond initiative. We've been working with Plant Moran, now Real Point, for the last decade. And the work and the partnership that was built through the 2013 bond, it was a very, very good relationship, and we found cost savings in the fact that we did have them on our team and on the bond team. We have a sinking fund, as the board well knows, and not too many years ago, we had brought a 10-year sinking fund to the community, and they had approved that. And the work that we do with the sinking fund just feels like it sometimes blends together a little bit with the bond. While those dollars do not, a lot of the work is similar and typical. So we did decide to then bring Plant Moran on as owners reps to have a level of involvement with the sinking fund. So at this time, December 31st of 2023, the agreement that we have with Plant Moran Real Point, between Livonia Public Schools and Plant Moran Real Point, is expiring. They were two separate items, two separate agreements. we had worked with our legal attorney through Clark Hill, and we drew up a document that you have, which is an amendment for the sinking fund to extend that for 3 more years, the same exact rate that we've been paying, $15,000 a month over 36 months, starting in January of 2024. But instead of having 2 documents with some different parts of language, what we're now doing is taking the document that we have between Livonia Public Schools and Plant Moran Real Point that we had redone for the 2021 bond initiative, that we actually has quite a few protections for Livonia Public Schools, all of the items in there from liabilities as well as the way that the working partnership works, and all of those items. Now we can take the sinking fund and just add that onto there. So we would just now create a single document for both the sinking fund and the bond fund, if that makes sense. So instead of having 2 distinct agreements, we've combined those. Again, this is something that Livonia Public Schools is supportive of. This is something from the basis of our legal counsel. We do like the idea of having them together because it's same rules, it's very similarly suited, and again, there's no increase in the amount that the district will be paying for the services of Plant Moran Real Point. It simply is the extension of the good work and the good partnership we've been having over the past decade. So with that, I'll ask Mrs. Oquist if she wants to add anything and see if there's any questions.
Thank you. So as we've talked about this here, and again, I think Mrs. Smith did an outstanding job in her memo really laying out the work that Plant Moran does on our behalf with regard to partnering with us on the sinking fund. Similarly to what we did with the governance document this year, where we really brought both of these functions of our work with the bond as well as the sinking fund under one governance document. So there was not any daylight. We utilize the same processes, we have the same roles and responsibilities, we have the same responsibilities to bring to the board, change orders and their amounts, et cetera. And that has been helpful to us as we've looked through projects both for the sinking fund as well as the bond, that there is no differential and we don't have to look at 2 different documents to govern our use of those funds. And similarly with this, the same roles and responsibilities for Plant Moran Real Point, the same coverage for the district exists between the work that they do for us regarding sinking fund projects as well as the bond. And so again, similar to what we did with the governance document into bringing that under one umbrella, we're making that recommendation with this amendment, which will now be an amendment to the bond agreement. This is intended to extend for 3 years, just as the last agreement did, through 2026.
Comments or questions on this item?
I wondered if either Mr. Weber or Mr. Terrio could just take us through the last 2 pages of the document, which I think for the community is helpful to know and realize.
Absolutely. First and foremost, we want to say thank you for the opportunity to let us sit here and present. It is a great partnership. I've been here for 5 years myself personally, so understanding the good work the team has done, it's a synergy. It works pretty well-oiled machine. Not only Mr. Francis, Mr. Lau and his team as well. So the backup we included the handout today. It's, as Phil had mentioned, we do talk a lot about a bond and $186 million, where we show up once in a while and give a roofing replacement recommendation, a boiler recommendation. So we put together a package we usually give a 3-year look ahead because we're trying to understand what's coming down the road and prep for it and plan for it. But also kind of gather all that information together the last few years and showed how much work between 2016 and 23 that was done, which is in the blue. It creeps up on you in understanding. We've touched basically every building in the district, whether it was for roofing, boilers, mechanical stuff, athletics.
I just want to say, like, I heard somebody say, wow, and I was going to, even before that, say, I just want to pause for a second and look at the list that's in the blue. I mean, that is a ton of work that's occurred in a district that has buildings from the 1950s and 1960s. They needed a lot of that work. And frankly, a lot of our items, many of our mechanical items aren't the original, but they're from the 90s, or maybe, if we're lucky, the very early 2000s. So we've tackled quite a bit over the past several years. And it's just amazing when you see it in print. All the buildings that we have is a differentiator from many of our neighboring districts as well. When you say you've got one high school at a district and maybe one middle school and a few elementaries, I've got that in one column over here. You know, and we're doing that year over year. So, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to just pause on that for a moment.
Mrs. Bradford?
Yeah, while we're there, I think this would be a great opportunity. This picture here would be great to show the community, because obviously they're the ones that voted and allowed us to have the sinking fund. So this would be really great to give an update on, to show the community how many buildings we've touched in this amount of time. So I think this is a great sheet. And of course, we want to thank all our voters for that.
And this is just the sinking fund. All of those projects, this isn't the bond. If we put bond on here, we'd run out of paper. So our community has been wildly supportive of this district and what we've been doing over the past years.
Along that line, too, sometimes we take for granted how good we have it. But there are a large number of municipalities and school districts, even close to us, let alone farther away, that simply aren't reinvesting in their facilities the way our community has allowed us to, as you said, Mrs. Bradford, with supporting that bond, both of the bonds and the ongoing sinking funds. We do owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our community for keeping our school district facilities in as terrific shape as they are. And it just simply isn't the case in every district, nor is it the case in a lot of municipalities. I mean, we've had a lot of both reach out to us and say, how do you do this? And a lot of it is with the help of, number one, it's the support of our community and through supporting bonds and sinking funds. Secondly, it's also with our partnership with Plant Moran Real Point. You folks have been fabulous to deal with, guiding us along the way. But we just don't want to take it for granted for a minute, because it's not a given that this is how every city or every school district operates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I could add to that, we obviously are very proud of the work we've teamed up with the district and the board on. Anytime we have public money entrusted to us to help make sure we plan accordingly and stretch as far as we can to get as much work done as possible is a big challenge, but it's one that we really look forward to and embrace. And we feel like, looking at that list, and I've been here since the beginning of that, it seems like 5 minutes ago, but it also seems like quite a long time. But we're very proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish and all the great things that we've been able to help the district do. So, and saving some dollars along the way and finding maybe some more creative ways to do things that have all been in the best interest of the district and the taxpayers. So definitely proud to be here and appreciate the long lasting relationship. So.
Just jumping in on 2024, 25, and 26, and the three different colors there, that peach, that yellow, and that green. There's just some of the items that we've laid out. That third column, boiler projects, is NA, just because, as you know, we completed them, which is pretty exciting. But we you know, this is all kind of asterisk saying this is what we are talking about, because we want to look ahead that far. But if we find something else that is more pressing, more urgent, we always can switch that around and have a little bit of mobility for ourselves. But as you can see, we're looking at some more roofing projects coming up. The board's actually already approved the roofing projects for summer of '24. We're looking at some paving projects to start picking those up again. Overall, looking at our paving, we're in pretty good shape in many of our schools. We need to do some in some spaces, but as the board remembers, we did quite a bit of paving as we followed through the 2013 bond initiative.
Touch on.
Absolutely.
So as part of that program, we reached out to NTH, who's done the civil engineering for parking lots previously. We have had a pause on parking lots. However, we looked to them to provide an assessment district-wide, similar to the roofing maps that we provided you. That they're in the process of putting that together for our parking lots as well, helping us map out. Knowing that the roofs became a priority, we had to get ahead of that. But looking ahead to the next few years, we will have color-coded maps, understanding the quality or lack thereof in some of the parking lots in the district. But as Phil had mentioned, nothing not too many areas are too pressing, so we were in a good spot that we have some flexibility, understand that looking ahead, we can map it out and kind of similar to the roofs, pick apart as we can go in the next few years.
One of the places that is a little bit more pressing is actually here. We haven't done those, and we have dozens and dozens of buses that run over this asphalt multiple times a day, just about every single day. So that takes a toll. So that's, you can see that's been listed as one of our items for paving.
Do you want to just take a moment and go over the cost savings?
Yep, let's go on to that next page, that last page there.
So looking at the last page is a cost avoidance, we like to call it, is the way we can structure some of these contracts and agreements with not only our design professionals, but how we manage the project. Looking at not just a year-by-year program is holistically looking at a 10-year program. We can approach design professionals understanding it's not just a one small job. How can we get fees based on multiple years? If you perform well, we can engage you on multiple large-scale projects. We were able to save design fees from when we first started the program and able to maintain that with the teams we worked with for the athletics, paving, and boiler projects. So that runs out for approximate savings based on the $46.7 million. There's a 1.1 approximate savings there. And then the other one is the construction manager. There's a level there needed for complex projects. Some of these where we have the opportunity to do a parking lot replacement, that's one contractor. We can set up the contract format so that the design professional helps us put it out to bid, hires directly to a paving contractor. Construction managers aren't needed in some forms of those projects. So we're appropriate, we do that, but on the ones that are more direct on roofing or paving, avoid the middle part of a construction manager. We help with the design professionals that can run those projects at a much more efficient rate. Ultimately, with the goal of, like Paul had said, is trying to stretch those dollars, be efficient with it, be smart, and understand where it's okay and safe to run programs that way. So all in all, looking at the work we've worked with the district on, $46.7 million, there's approximate savings of $5.3 million just by structuring those contracts that way.
That's excellent.
And additionally, it's inherent with our design professionals, but we do come with contingencies to the board to get approved. If those dollars aren't spent, we help monitor it, make sure that they don't fizzle away or get scope creep where we don't want it. And there's actually been right around $2 million returned from contingencies over the past few years that go right back into the sinking fund and help provide more for more projects.
Terrific.
Yeah, so again, I think that's was a good recap of just a couple or a few of the ways that we've tried to add value. A lot of it, as Brian and Phil said, is leveraging the volume, not just on a project-by-project basis, but looking at it over a longer time horizon, partnering with some great firms, some great design firms, some great construction firms, using the construction management firms when we need them on the bigger projects that are more complicated, and then maybe finding some different ways to deliver some of the simpler projects like roofs and parking lots and things like that. So a lot of great work by a lot of people, a ton of people on the administration side in maintenance and ops and at the building level. So we really appreciate all that support. And a lot of great projects that are being planned and designed right now for next year and the years to come. So.
Very good.
Comments or questions?
One final point on this, and this is, first of all, needs board approval, so I would ask this to go on to the regular meeting. But I would like to point out, and I mentioned that the fee is not changing for, that we have with Plant Moran Real Point. He tells me that their costs are going up, and I believe him, but yet we are keeping the same fee. So that is actually a good win between the savings that we're getting from the work that they do in partnership with us and holding the fee steady for so many years. It is helpful.
Greatly appreciated.
Any other comments or questions? As I've said many times, we greatly value your work. Those of us at this table know pretty well now how to be good school board members, and the team behind me is phenomenal at running a school district. But we, even after all this bond work, we're not construction experts, not in the manner that you folks are. So one of the enormous values that I see is that we can trust you with your guidance on when to go, when to pull back on things, even when the economy is good like it is now, when we're getting fewer bidders on a given item. You can let us know whether or not that, even if we've got a smaller bid pool, whether or not that price is still a legit price. or whether it's something we should go back out to bid on. So it's, a lot of times those costs don't even show up here on this, or the savings don't show up on this sheet, but they're very real. So it's, again, I'd like to thank you for your work with Livonia Public Schools, because I believe that it's been invaluable.
Thank you. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Any other comments or questions? All right, we're going to put this on the agenda then for a vote for next week. Okay.
All righty.
Thank you, folks, so much. Thanks for coming out with us this evening. Oh, you're going to be hanging around? Never mind. Yep.
Not going anywhere.
You almost got out, not quite. And item 5C is the 2024 bond contractor recommendations. I'll turn
Thank
it
you
back
very
over.
much. Just a quick overview that we went out to bid. We do have for summer 2024. Many of the contractors, we do have to go out for rebid on a couple of items, but what we're bringing to the board has a hard construction amount of $8,530,333. We'll certainly put contingency, and of course, there's always some fees that are always related to the construction and the bid amounts. So that's just in the memo that I gave the board, you have those numbers on there. And we can run through what some of the budgeted line items were overall and what the actuals came out as thus far. Let me pass it over to you. Go ahead.
Mike's on now. Just to hit the high points, this was a public bid. As typical, we put it on our state website as well as a local newspaper. So in mid-October, those were issued. We received bids on November 7th. All in all, we received 30 bids, 30 proposals from contractors. And Phil touched on a little bit of the budget items, but I'll push you to page 3 to give you that summary of where our numbers came in versus our variance on budget, and then roll into Clark's package, get a little more detail, and you guys can ask questions from there. So on page 3, it shows our cost summary. Our actual cost of $8.5 million. We were actually under budget by about $150,000 for these categories. As Phil had mentioned, we did receive, for 10 bid categories, there'll be 5 that we'll have to rebid, but isolating the budget for these 10, the numbers were good. Like I said before, they are becoming a little bit more predictable from previous years, so we're in a good spot from that standpoint. So we would ask for the hard bids of the 8,530, roll into the CM fees and costs, which is the second section. So we have our staffing and reimbursables from Clark Construction already established in a previous agreement. Our general conditions and CM fee would get multiplied by our hard costs, which is shown there for the $353,156. We're asking for a 7% contingency, which has been typical the last couple summers, for the $597,000 for an all-in of $9,480,612 would be the recommendation.
I think is it safe to say we're aiming to bring the rebids in December?
Yes, that is a goal. So we, if you flip 2 pages, we will show Clark's summary of bidders. As I mentioned, there's 10 categories there. There's 5 that we're meeting with the construction team this week to understand. We did not get coverage or well enough coverage in concrete, steel, pool equipment, and then our HVAC, we had 1 bid that elected to pull the bid out. So we're going to repackage that along with the electrical package. We went out as 1 larger package. We're going to try and strategize with the Clark team, see if we can break it up into a couple smaller packages, go back out, shake the trees, and make sure we get some better coverage here is the goal. Timeline, it's going to be tight with the holiday, but we're looking at mapping it out and hopefully hit the December board meeting, but we'll keep Phil and the team updated.
Just to give some quick perspective on that, it's funny, the last few years have been more than a little challenging for the bid market. For a while, it was just that prices were going up so fast and we couldn't get equipment, we couldn't get materials. That has settled down quite a bit, as Mr. Weber mentioned, but now the big challenge has been just finding enough contractors to do the work. So it's funny, when I started 25 years ago, we would have got 100 bids on a package like that. Even a few years ago, maybe in the last bond, we would have got 50 or 60. Now, trying to find anyone that has the capacity to bid on some of these projects, especially mechanically, electrically, there's just so much work in southeastern Michigan, and there's so many people that have retired out of the trades and not enough people coming in to the trades. It really has been a struggle for a lot of our clients to find enough bids to be able to bring an award recommendation forward. So obviously, we've got a couple categories we're going to rebid and hopefully pound the pavement a little bit more, maybe restructure some things and try to make sure we get better coverage. But it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, so.
We're going to run through the alternates with you as well. We did accept some of the alternates, alternate bids that are in what you see on that total that we just ran through.
Starting page 17.
Yeah, my numbers are different than your guys', so.
So
Looks like you should have 17.
So as typical, understanding budgets could fluctuate or where bids come in, we ask for bid alternates, which is an opportunity of additional work outside of our base scope. It lets us review, analyze once bids are in to see if we want to accept additional scope that is needed at times, or depending on price, is that something we defer to at a later point, do more efficiently, or reconsider a different strategy on accepting. So alternate one is crossed out. This was in existing corridors at Stevenson High School. Going back to the 2013 bond, there were some schools received brand-new corridor ceilings, some did not, just based on the year, and with LED technology coming out, some schools got the LED, some didn't. So we put in the package as an alternate to remove and replace all ceiling systems, including the metal grid that goes with it, light fixtures. But as part of the base scope was replacing the pads only. So the grid we will repair where needed, where it's damaged or marred up, but just replacing the pads itself. But we want to see what it would cost to take the grid out, start from scratch. That was a cost of $124,000 above and beyond what we had as a base bid. We felt like we could repair or replace as needed, not have to spend the $124,000 and still get the end product that we want in the corridors there.
Yeah, and I just want to just clarify and confirm with everyone that the halls in Stevenson, when we're done, will look far better. We will have any part that the actual grid has damaged, we'll replace that. Like Mr. Weber said, we already have new pads going in there, and we can work towards even doing updates to the lights outside of the scope of the bond, as we've been doing in other areas, to update them into LEDs. So it's going to be brighter, it's going to be cleaner, it's going to look nicer. That's something we're committed to. We just don't need to spend those dollars to accomplish it.
Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you. That's the hallways only. The classrooms were all ready, changed out?
Those were
That
done in
is correct.
2000, the earlier bond.
And with the air conditioning issues that we had, are those all being replaced?
Any pads in a classroom that got wet and the insulation and the things that are above those pads are all being replaced.
And is that completed yet, or that's still in its
they're still
working
working through those.
stages?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I'm sorry, I
just
took a
one.
rabbit hole on just one.
Okay.
But I just
Go
thought it was
ahead.
important, I didn't want people to hear, we're not doing Stevenson's hallway. I wanted to confirm
Right.
and clarify, yes, we are, we're just doing it, we're taking a different
Doing it differently.
route than that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll touch on the other ones a little more quickly here. That was more involved alternate we had here. So the alternate two is paint locker room. We are working in the locker rooms itself. Wanted to see what it would take to paint the walls. That we felt that it was a cost-effective option, that's we were moving forward. I'm sorry, for Stevenson. Once again, in the pool room and auditorium at Stevenson, painting the walls there as well was accepted, being that we'd be already in there, and it was a cost-effective option. Next page, alternate 4. Install epoxy flooring over the existing mosaic tile throughout the locker rooms. This is still at Stevenson's locker room. So the existing floor there is in poor shape right now, so we were going to look at options to it, and understanding using the same epoxy we've used in the bathrooms. It's turned out well, so we think it's a good cost-effective opportunity to improve that space. We have rejected alternate 5 at Stevenson. The number is incorrect here, I just noticed, but the remove and install new light fixtures. I'm sorry, it's because we're not bringing the electrical bid with it. But this was another large cost that we have other avenues to replace those lights in the corridors, which will be done at different means. Alternate 6, we move over to Holmes. So there's storefront, the windows at the Library Media Center. It was an option that we wanted to look as an alternate, and once again, the price is very agreeable. So this will take existing windows that are a little more shallow, bring them down, get more light into the space, bring it to a lower elevation to capture more daylight. Alternate 7, we are moving over to Roosevelt. So if you walk into Roosevelt Elementary right now, there's an existing display case, not always full and utilized to its full potential. So we're looking at options to convert that to a new space, Design's still trying to be finalized, but there's a textured wall options or different features that we can put there, so it's just not a big, large, empty displays case when you walk in. Alternates 8 and 9 at Roosevelt refer to the storefront and some operable windows. Once again, cost didn't come in where we had hoped, and we felt there was other ways to spend that money more efficiently, so we've rejected those 2 options. Alternate 10 at Roosevelt. So at the radius in the Library and Media Center, if you guys are familiar with it, similar to Coolidge that we renovated a couple years ago, Coolidge actually has a band of windows in the radius wall. Roosevelt does not. So we're going to try, we've accepted the alternate to cut in new windows there, bring in more daylight. It'll make that space feel much larger and capture more light in there. So we felt that was a good decision to move forward with that one. Alternate 11 at Roosevelt as well. There's 2 bathrooms just adjacent to the LMC. Older tile in those. This is work to put new tile on the walls and epoxy coat those bathrooms as well. Alternate 12, put exterior brick install at the clear story window. So at Franklin High School, at the pool room, this is capturing outside daylight. If you walk in now, there's no exterior windows. We have an opportunity to cut in windows, capture daylight for the pool room as well.
It's a bit of a theme through the bond,
Yes.
places where we
Yep.
can. And the board just saw what we did at Riley's LMC and just the difference it makes.
great.
So we've done that in where we can, where feasible.
Similar theme, alternate 13 at Churchill High School. We also have a pool room that we're going to capture daylight, cut in windows to capture that light as well. A2, Churchill, prep existing mosaic tile over the pool deck. So this one is different than Franklin and Stevenson, where Churchill's existing pool deck in the entire pool room is in not as fair shape as Stevenson and Franklin. So we did take an alternate, felt the price was right on budget and fair, that we will plan on putting tile over the entire deck at Churchill pool room, around the pool. We are not draining the pool and putting it in the pool, just on the deck itself and surrounding the bleacher area. A3 at Churchill as well, install new wall tile including prep. So at the walls as well, there's older tile there. We're going to cover that with the newer
I
tile
think
as
they're the
well.
only ones that have tile on the wall, if I
Yep.
recall.
Alternate 16, continuing the theme of the pool room at Churchill. This is to remove and replace the existing bleachers that are in that space as well, is also been added to the scope.
Okay.
I believe that is everything.
So obviously a lot of different alternates, but I think one of the nice things of putting those all in the bid package is it gives us a lot of flexibility on bid day, right? If we end up coming in a little bit over budget or a little bit under, we're able to do some extra work and do it more efficiently, again, by leveraging the volume of the bigger package. So it's a little bit of extra work for the design team and the construction managers and Brian and Phil, but I think, looks like it played out pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like a lot of nice additions that we're going to be able to have.
Yeah, and it was good to talk through each one of those options and to really determine whether or not it was worth the dollars. And some of them are a little more pricey than others, as you can see. But if we're recommending it, it really is because it's something that is ideal to have. And because the other costs came under budget, we're able to do that.
And usually when you already have the trades in there, as opposed to doing it as a one-off, and that's the only thing they're coming in to do, you can save some dollars doing that.
Any other comments or questions?
So it'd be next week's voting meeting,
Yep,
please?
put up this one on the agenda for next week. Alrighty, next item is item 5D, the ECC furniture purchase. This is
So
fun.
with the, this furniture purchase, before we talk dollars, I want to wow you with a presentation of the furniture for the upcoming new ECC. So I'm going to invite Lauren Bush from TMP Architectural Firm. She is one of the designers with them, and she put together a little presentation of renderings, so you can get sort of a feel for what we're looking to be purchased. Just tap it.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I'm going to run you through the furniture selections for the Early Childhood Center. First, I wanted to just go over a little bit about our process that we did. We had a small group of decision makers. We went through a series of a few meetings to really narrow down our furniture selections, colors, finishes, all of that. We also had a small furniture fair at the current Early Childhood Center where we brought samples and provided surveys for the teachers and staff there that they could provide their feedback, and then that feedback we used to make our decisions as well. So running through here, this is just a layout of the building, and the sections highlighted are the different areas of the classrooms that we'll be moving forward with. A floor plan view of the preschool classrooms. We really wanted to capture the accent colors. Each wing has their own color, so we are incorporating that into the finishes of the room. We have we'll have our chair and our leg and edge band colors matching the teaching wall, the rug, and the island in the rooms. And we really worked to make sure that we had a bunch of areas for the children as well. We have our learning and teaching areas, we have our play areas, and then there are also quiet corners for the children to go read, or if they just need a break from the regular day-to-day, they can go there with comfortable seating. You can see that in the calming corner area, we have some bean bags and a little lounge chair for them as well. Each classroom will have a lap desk and a lap chair for area on the rug that they can use. We also have some hockey stools, some little wobble stools for the horseshoe table. We'll also bring the chairs over there as well. And then our play area, there's a kitchen, a doll bed, a market center, or a dress-up center. We are providing a few options of each, and then they can be brought into the different classrooms as needed to kind of switch out what, who is going to be, who has access to that and whatnot.
I'm going to just pause for a quick minute there. One of the things is it would be very crowded if all 4 of those pieces were in every classroom. And it's also something that, something becomes new and exciting if they haven't seen it in a bit. So the idea is to have 2 of those in a classroom, and then 2 in an adjacent classroom, and then periodically swap those out. They're relatively light and easy to move, and so the idea is that they will be available to the students in those classrooms on an alternating basis.
Thank you. Moving forward, all the other classrooms we pretty much have the same thing going on here. Just wanted to show a few different renderings of the areas. This will be our purple wing. In the ECP classrooms, we do have cube chairs that each student will be able to have, and those will be at the rug. They can also move around the classroom as needed. This is our green classroom. And you'll see we really tried to match the colors with our accents here. And then the addition to this one, they'll have cots for sleeping, nap time.
Okay.
But all of these classrooms are pretty much the same. Just gonna run through here. GSRP, also the same. These are in our yellow wing. And we work to make sure that all of the chair heights and table heights are appropriate for the size of the students in the classrooms as well.
Okay.
And the tables are height adjustable legs if needed.
Okay.
Early on classrooms, we did a different table shape here just to give it a little bit of interest.
Just a reminder, those are the ones that are a smaller room, so you can't fill it the same way. They have a smaller group.
And then our Talk It Out classrooms, this is the same thing, same table shape here. We also incorporated a library into one of our classrooms. We have our fun shape here. And then we will also be using some existing furniture from the ECC currently to bring in here to infill some of this area that was in good shape.
Okay.
We also have an enrichment room, so we wanted this classroom to be different than all the rest and provide a few different play options. We still have our tables and chairs in here, but we have a washer and dryer play set, a grill, a mopping station, and a play, like a play area here.
Okay.
The family rooms, this is the middle, all of the classrooms are connected to these. There are 4 total throughout the building, and this is a great space where the classroom can come out if they need a little bit more room. We have our sand and water tables in here, and some of these Jenga pieces, so these are just foam blocks that can be rearranged in any way that the students see fit. We also have some lower tables with some floor pads here, and this is just a great space for one classroom or multiple to come out and interact with each other. We have 4 of these, I'm sorry.
And what are the pieces on the bottom, the 2 rectangular pieces? Down a little bit lower?
Oh, the sand table.
Is that a sand table, water table?
Sand and water table, and then this one is a construction table. There, in the family rooms, there are a few different play area tables that we have that can be changed around as needed.
Okay,
They can switch between them.
okay.
The GSRP, this is like a Lego table that has bins in it.
Okay,
And then each has 2 sand and water tables in each of the family rooms.
okay.
We also are going to include an interactive sand table. We were able to see a live demo of this, and this is a projection screen that projects onto the sand, and if you move the sand, it does like different typography. I think there was like 30 different games you could play in the sand. That is very interactive for the students. It also rotates, and there are 50 floor games that they can play. So it projects onto the floor, and they can
okay.
play different games by stepping on it or, things like that. So we explored a few different options and saw a few different demos of this in action.
I'm going to just make a note about the family rooms. They are large spaces, as you know, from walking through them. So they are adjacent. There's the mudroom, the classrooms, the family room, and then those alternate. And one of the things we wanted to be cautious about was filling it up with too many things. And so we're starting with some of the stadium seating where kids can come out and listen to a story, some of the low tables where they can work with friends on a project, some of the exploratory tables. But what we don't want to do is fill it completely. The idea is there is meant to be room for some movement, meant to have room for a classroom to come out and utilize the space on the floor, as we saw in our visits to another school district with a similar layout. And so we're starting with what we think would be some of the basic needs. And it may be that we'll come back in another year or two and take a look at some things we might want to add. But what we don't want to do is fill the classrooms or fill the family rooms with too many things. Oftentimes, our kiddos just need some space.
Need space to play.
Exactly.
The gross motor, again, we are not going to furnish this as much to leave space for the kids to run around, use bicycles. We have that little track that they can run around on. And there are a lot of existing pieces from the ECC that we can bring over as well. There is a new playscape that will be purchased. This one is shown right here in the middle, and there are safety mats around that as well. There's also some balance beams shown here that do get mounted to the wall for storage. The OTPT room, it will be equipped with play mats and a table for OTPT needs. The Welcome Center, we're getting into the offices now. This is all district standard items that you will see in the district already. We have a chair that was already decided on. The staff offices, these are all following our district standards. Principal's office, same idea here. Teachers Lounge, these are all existing pieces in the district already. We have a bank of high tables here, and then standard sitting tables here. These are all on casters that can be moved around as needed. Teacher prep rooms, these are in between the classrooms and the family rooms. We will have 3 teachers per teacher prep room with a table in the middle for collaboration. Again, on casters as well. Conference room, these are the same tables that you'll see in the teacher lounge, so you can bring in more if needed, and the same chairs. We do have a lounge seat off to the side as well, with a credenza and with the TV over it.
And just to be clear, wherever we see the round tables, those are actually square tables.
They are, yes. Yep, I just couldn't get a photo of the square. The smaller conference room, same idea here, just no lounge piece. And there is a wall in the middle too, that is movable, so all these pieces, yeah, all these pieces can be moved, yep. Clinic, have 2 chairs here, and our standard bed here. Storage areas, metal wire shelves, and then a ball storage for the gross motor. And then back of house, again, more storage and a folding table for the laundry room.
Excellent.
Do you have questions?
Very good.
Questions, comments from folks? Mrs. Bonnefield?
Thank you, it's very nice. Can you talk about the islands in the classrooms? It looks like there's a stationary island with the sink and how that works into the framework of the room rather than having the sink and that stuff along the wall.
Yeah, so the island, I don't have it anymore, but yeah, the island is in the middle, or off to the side, and that just gets a little bit of break up to the room, and there is a sink and a bubbler there at the student height as well, so that they can interact with that. And we saw that at a different design that we've implemented at a different school, and they liked it and it worked well for the
Part of it, we
flow.
also want to have the ability for students to kind of gather around when it's against the wall, as many of our current elementaries are. They would be facing a wall or have to turn around and have their back to it. So you just kind of.
They could do painting,
You could do
they could do
you
other things that
gathering
would require
around
them to
and face
stand,
each other.
and then easily clean that area. We were able to see that in action, and it seemed like a nice design element that there was room for based on the number of students in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you. Just to piggyback off that, is that the height of those are low for the student use? So it's not a high table, correct?
Correct.
It's low, it'll be, I mean, the renderings I couldn't tell, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, perfect, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments, questions? No, it's exciting seeing all this getting ready to go in and go from construction and barely getting the walls up to now we're putting color and fabrics and so forth in. I know, it's really fun.
Yep.
All righty.
With regard to the actual purchase of the items, we have 6 different furniture vendors that TMP went through. So some of the beauty of this is we don't have to only go to one place. We had conversations about what's the need, and then TMP went out and said, let's find who we have access to.
Yep.
So in your packet, you'll see 6 different vendors listed in here. The total we have, and that's with contingency, we definitely want to have some contingency dollars into this, because if we say we missed a space, or we want to get another one of those, so we have as a total, it's $587,194 with another $29,300 in contingency for a total of $616,500 on this purchase. The presumption is that the timing and the lead time for all these is going to work out for us in that we can just have them delivered on it. I don't believe we have to store on site here anywhere. We'll be able to take it straight to the ECC when it's ready.
Good. Yep. Good. All righty. So this will be on our agenda for next week?
Please.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions or comments on this item? All righty. Alrighty.
Lauren,
Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate you coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
The next item is 5E, the ECC playground, no, yes.
Yeah, we're there.
ECC playground equipment purchase.
All right. Yeah, I do here. Here you go. Trying to get to my spot. I'll start this way. Take some that way. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Here you go, ma'am. Is anyone collecting for Crystal? Are you collecting for Crystal?
Oh, you have some too?
Okay, because we have it.
I've
We have
got
all
the
those.
first few items
We
for
have
over
more of
here.
everything. If she'd like multiple from the quarterly.
Mrs. Acosta, you've
Okay.
got her stuff? You need one of these? Okay.
You need a playground?
Okay.
Here, take, or do you have a, oh, you have more? Okay.
Do you have, you've got that? And you've got this?
Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
man, can I get some?
So in your packet, you actually have, what we gave you here is just to start, just to show from an overhead. We talked a little bit, very briefly in the study session, how we've got different areas zoned out. You can see the black line going around is the fencing, so there's room to grow as well in the future. You know, we have a toddler section, we have an area that has a hill and a bridge, and we have an area that will have like little stumps and little balancing beams. They look like wood logs and wood stumps. So there's a purposefully concrete pathways for trikes, et cetera. So there's a variety on the land itself, and you can see from the different colors, there'll be large open areas that are grass, but we also have the soft play surface, which is a requirement when you have these types of play equipment on them. And we also have areas, the darker green should be turfed as well. So we have three different, actually four if you count the concrete, different types of surfaces running throughout this. And in your packet, in yours, if you saw it in color, when you had it electronically, you'll see some of the play equipment with the quote from Kennedy Recreational. The theme of the colors of the equipment will be matching the theme as best we can with the school. So the purple, the yellow, the green, the blue. As often as we can, we're trying to get those mixed into to the actual colors on the equipment.
So the colors you see on this rendering are not the colors that will be there.
In the pictures.
But we thought rather than having just a wild array, really having the outside reflect the inside and vice versa made a lot of sense. Now, there may be a color here or there that gets added to that mix, but for the most part, we went through and assigned really everything from a post to a slide, et cetera, to one of those
et cetera.
four colors.
Sometimes you can't get, like, sometimes it's gonna be red, potentially, if it doesn't come in that. But really, there's a great variety of color when it comes to playground equipment, from the surface to the actual structure itself.
And as you see on the right, the large motor skills room, so you see where that area comes right out onto the playground. And as Mr. Francis said, that entire area that's outlined in gray, that will be concrete. And so all around the Hill Bridge area, the play pad turfed area, students can take their trikes out through that garage door that opens from the large motor room. And they'll be able to take those trikes right out and go through and stay on the trike trail all the way around the playground, as well as utilize all of these different areas. In the toddler play area, which is next to the administration area, near the top of the paper, you'll see that called out in the top left. The toddler play area is fenced in separately, so there is an additional gate there. So obviously, the entire playground is fenced in, and then there's another fence for the toddler play area. So that area is really designed for the 1- and 2-year-olds.
Yeah, the little ones.
And where are the shade structures going to be going?
On some of the actual, if you look in your packet, you'll see some shade structures that are built into the larger playscapes. And then we also have fabric, shade structure.
right here.
The orangey square
Okay,
that's
This
by
is one
got
itself.
it. Oh, there we go.
And then you'll
The
see
yellow line.
some of the play areas, as Mr. Francis said, both the toddler play area up here on the top left has a built-in shade structure, and then there is a, I don't know, in pieces over the large one, there are pieces of a
Oh, yeah.
large,
Trying
to see if
of
you
the
have a good-
shade
yeah.
structure.
I think we have some
Okay.
decent pics of that. And then if you look in your packet, there are different items that are like, inserts, et cetera. We've talked about trying to do little things like on the bridge that looks down, that's supposed to be water below. We're talking about how do we perhaps get concrete that's been dyed blue to have it give that feel of, hey, it's supposed to represent water. Some of these other little items that you can have done. So right now, the package that we have, it's in the amount of $454,216. We also are going to, I'm on the wrong one. I'm jumping to technology now. I pulled too many pages. My apologies. We actually have, for the playground equipment, a not to exceed $790,095. That includes the contingency amount. That is, it is on contract and consortium pricing, so it does qualify and fulfill the board's obligation to bid. And right now, we still have to choose and finalize some colors on some items, so we just wanted to get this for lead times to the board. We know the items. We've been working as a team. Katie Dodge, principal at ECC, has been involved with those. Mr. Green, elementary director. Of course, Andrea has been involved in all of those. And we're working with a playground consultant as well, who is designing these items. So it's really been, and it's interesting to go through that process, because what you're looking at now was not rendering number one, was not idea number one. So we work through it, we have those conversations, but we know what pieces we need and that we want. The colors can come, and that's why we have some contingency on there in case we find something that we say, oh, you know what, we're gonna swap that, or we want to add that one little piece.
Okay.
Can I clarify as well, just for everybody's understanding? So we knew this area would be a separate package when we came with the recommendation prior. So I just want to clarify that the fence itself is not in this package. We will come to the board at a later date. They're finalizing design for the actual concrete sidewalks. The fence itself, there's going to be a little bit of under drainage in this area. So this is for the equipment itself, the rubberized surface and the turf, and we'll come back.
And the installation.
Yes, and the installation of everything. So some of the site work we have bought through our current site work contract. So we will finalize the scope for all the other pieces and parts, and we will come with a recommendation for getting those purchased as well. But this is for the equipment itself and the surfaces.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yep.
That it is literally for the equipment and the items that it's gonna go on.
Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you. Can you clarify that red area down in the bottom right? What is that? I see the purple, the sensory art music play area.
Yeah, that is a swing set area.
Oh, swing
Yeah.
set, okay.
And once again, the color is a red for a rubberized surface, but that has not been finalized yet. That's something we're honing in on.
Don't be married to the colors you see
Oh, yeah.
here.
No, I just wasn't sure where, I see number 2 in the green area is a swing set.
Yep.
And so those will be the two areas, that 2 in this red area that are swing sets,
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Correct. And that includes a generational swing that they have at Jackson Center right now, as well as accessible swing that'll be included in that set. So
Okay.
we have a couple different swing sets there. Up by the toddler area, it's a smaller set, and then the red area we were just talking about is the higher baskets as well, so.
Perfect.
But you can see how the numbers, in the color of the number, corresponds to different areas. You get a good feel for it. Again, while it may not be the color, you get a real nice feel of the pieces that are gonna be out there, and a nice variety, because we do have different ages and different abilities.
Okay.
And in that area just adjacent to the red area, the green area with the different mounds, those really are some neat turfed play areas that the kids can run up and run back down, and even a little mini sledding hill. They're not super high, but they're enough that they will really, I think, be a point of interest for our
It'll
kiddos.
good, some good physical play.
This green area?
Yeah, the sensory
That
area,
green area,
correct. Yes.
sensory area.
Yeah,
Not the red area?
Correct.
That's a nature play area, okay.
right,
Got it.
Correct.
yep.
And keep that,
Okay.
run through it. I'm sure you'll enjoy kind of getting a chance to, I know it's fun. It is fun. The thing is, it's fun now. It's overwhelming when they open up the whole world to you of playground equipment and
Yeah.
you say,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yes,
Narrowing
uh-huh.
it down was a challenge.
And when is the tentative installation date for this?
So this will be integrated with the site work that Clark is managing, so weather pending, as soon as spring allows, this equipment will be here. There'll be a lot of heavy coordination with the sidewalk and everything else that, once we bring that, but yes, everything is planned for springtime, starting,
When it dries up enough.
yes.
Do you
And
mind?
they've already started, I noticed, with the curb cuts and things.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that
Yeah.
on the south end.
Yeah, they're
It's-
actually, I think they're paved halfway around the circle for the parking area, and the other half will be done this week, so. Yeah, they're doing the base course right now, that the last course, the final
end.
course will be at the end, but it'll be a good prep for the winter months.
Mrs. Acosta?
Thank you. This is looking into the future because I'm looking at this and how exciting it would be. Just wishing my kids were still young enough to enjoy this.
It's not
And
too
so-
late.
Yes, it is.
Too late.
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
ship has sailed.
Bite
The
your tongue.
factory is closed. So, but I'm wondering, I know that we have at a lot of our schools in the neighborhood, the playgrounds are not fenced. And so you see community members enjoying
Yeah.
those facilities and equipment at any given time. Will that also be the case for, I know we talked about fencing, this is just me looking into the future.
It won't be.
Okay.
We really need to take some extra precautions, and there are regulations for the state for child care centers that are a little different than schools. They're also open a little later, and then all through the summer. And so it will be a fenced-in area for a security feature.
And just from convenience, just a little over to the east is Nigiero with brand-new playground equipment that children can go and play on, and that is open.
Thank you. Just in case someone's already putting it in their calendar.
It's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up for us to mention.
And that nature is actually on adjacent property. I mean, it's right.
You
It
can
is.
literally walk
It's
across the
right
grass
there.
to it.
Yep, yep, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Looks so great. It's exciting.
You may wind up with 7 board members over there playing on this one day. Just
There are regulations.
don't mind us, yes. Yeah.
I think we need adult tricks.
So this would be requested for the voting meeting next
Okay.
week, please.
Alrighty.
Board member races.
The next item on our agenda is item 5F, the ECC technology bid.
We're gonna stay on this train, on this track with ECC, and I'm gonna invite Mr. Rock Maury to come join us over here, and he is with IDS. They are our technology consultants for the bond.
Terrific.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We have a planned purchase for technology at the new Early Childhood Center. I asked Rock to be with us today in case you had a little bit more detailed questions of some of the items. This is really, if you think about the items that we have currently in our schools, this is the next phase or the next level of technology that's brought it forward on some of these items with regard to the sound systems, the audio. We're talking about screens as well that would be in the hallways or in the open areas. So that's what the full package is that we're talking about. Would you do me a favor, just take 30 seconds and just sort of talk through a few of the differences between what we have now as a sound system in the classrooms and things like that?
Okay,
It
certainly.
might take you more than 30 seconds, but
That might take-
I'm an optimist.
No, that's fine. So what we have as far as sound systems in the classroom right now today are speech reinforcement for the teachers so that they don't experience voice fatigue. We also have student microphones pass around, to the students so that they get to participate in dialogue and presentation and so on. We're still going to maintain projectors, interactive projectors throughout at this grade level as well. So we'll go with basically the latest and greatest in the models and so on.
And that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but laser as opposed to bulb, correct?
That's correct. So they will be
big
laser, so,
difference With regard to not having to exchange bulbs, you have a better lumen on it.
right. and probably on average, without having that maintenance equation on an annual basis and go around and clean filters, change bulbs, things of that nature, these have the same kind of lifespan as a lot of these television panels that you have right now. So 20,000 hours, if you equate 20,000 hours of continuous use, it's about 15 years before you have to worry about the brightness or, you know, the clarity or anything like that of the projectors. So that's a big savings in the maintenance cost as well. Obviously, the boring part about a lot of this is just the guts, you know, the veins, the arteries, and so on. So we've also have all of the network cabling for the building, for all the different locations. And then along with that network cabling, then will also be a new paging system. And the paging system has some very unique life safety features for emergency notification capabilities within the building, as well as first responders and so on. So you have, you know, access to your first responder community, and they have access to your school as well. And so those are the three primary elements of what we're doing, you know, throughout the building.
Having sat in on the presentation for these, what I recognized in the answer from the gentleman from the company was saying, there are even more features. It really is just programming, as opposed to saying we have to come in and do something else in the future if we wanted to expand some of that or pay for an extra feature. It's literally the programming of it because it's already all there and ready for it, right? Right. So there's some, one of the things that stood out in my mind was the microphone system that the teacher could simply press a couple of buttons on it simultaneously to silently notify the office, and the office could have the map of which room that's coming from. They could be listening in and send somebody in if they need to. So it's got some built-in safety features that we don't currently have. The systems that we're talking about today, putting in to the Early Childhood Center, are the systems that we want to then, and we have these dollars in the bond and technology to do the replacements in our other schools as well. So this would be our first foray into these pieces.
And that's the whole idea there, is that you have a district-wide, so you have consistency across that. Plus you have your finger on the pulse, so to speak, for the entire district. So that it doesn't necessarily mean that just for the specific building alone. You know, I can give a notification for, you know, severe weather warning or something like that. That's, you know, whether it's on the east side of the district or the south side of the district or whatever, just an alert that just like we have, you know, made this discovery, we've seen a funnel cloud or something along those lines, right? And you can broadcast the notification throughout the entire district. So that will be, you know, another feature and functionality of that. And yes, going back to your comment about the additional features and/or it's just quote unquote a small matter of programming, okay, where traditionally it's always been you roll a truck and you wait for somebody that takes 2 or 3 days for them to get there, and then they're there for about an hour, and you get the bill, and then a week later something else crops up, they've got to roll another truck, it's going to be 2 or 3 days later, et cetera. So there's a big component of this for the IT staff is also the training for the IT staff, so that they can be the ones that can do the programming as well. Okay. And you put a lot of control into the building principals, from a building principals and staff, and not just faculty, you know, from that emergency response capability. You know, it's the, I have that first action, which is I've received some kind of a notification. I want the inquiry. I want to find out what the issue is so I can send the appropriate people down there and notify them immediately. And we also have the capability to be able to do that for, if it's a buildings and grounds issue, the wall is falling or the wall is buckling or something, God forbid. He can be immediately notified as well, okay, on his cell phone or his email or whatever it might be. So we have that same kind of capability. And then once again, I throw in the first responders. The system has gone into many other school districts, and one of the big features of that is from the, not only like tying in with video security, video surveillance cameras and things of that nature, but then also for the first responder that just says, do I need an SRO in the building, to come and, break up a scuffle? Or do I have something more serious than that? And now I can go out to the outside organizations, police, fire, public safety, and so on, and not only notify them, but exactly where and pinpoint within the building. So if you think of what 911 services are right now, pick up the phone, dial 911. It's an adjunct to that, because now it's not only just where are you and what building and what's your situation, but your first responders and your response teams in the building have immediate notification and access and progress of whatever that issue is or the incident was, and then what you did to close out that particular incident or that particular issue, and that becomes a learning moment for everybody, on the staff. Yes?
Thank you. Question, going back to the training, you said our IT people will be trained. How, will there be training included for our staff and everybody? Is that part of the project?
Yes.
So the staff will be able to understand how to
Yes,
use the
their
equipment?
equipment. And
Right.
it's generally, things
won't-
usually seem pretty simple when folks are showing it to you, but there's some pretty simple in the base systems of how to use the microphone system, and that's really the main piece that a teacher would be utilizing.
Right.
Okay. And I'm just follow up along those lines. We were talking a lot about security and the technology. Are we having? Is this the same with cameras? Is this a different bid for cameras and security?
This is a
Not
different.
camera.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
This is audio and
This is just
video,
audio.
and yes,
Okay,
for
thank you.
classrooms and in the buildings.
Okay, thanks.
Cameras, on the other hand, we're rolling along, making very, very good progress, and we should probably be buttoned up within the next 30 to 60 days for the entire district
Okay,
with all new cameras.
great, thank you.
All right.
Are there any other questions?
Comments, questions? No, it's very exciting, and I mean, just so and technology is like this. You
Goes
can-
fast.
Technology is
Exactly,
exciting.
you've got the top-of-the-line stuff, and 6 months to a year later, there are more features, so it's nice that we can utilize some of those in the ECC, and then perhaps bring them into our other K-12 buildings, so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, request for the voting meeting,
Yes,
please.
exactly. All right.
Okay. Thank you
Anything
very
else with
much.
this?
Thank you.
All right.
Mr.
Thank
Weber,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unless you want to talk about bleachers.
Almost set.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
very much,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Brian.
Have a good night. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. The next item is item 5G, bleachers for Franklin Tennis. And Mr. Francis.
This, as you all know, and hopefully you've gotten a glimpse of, the new tennis courts at Franklin High School, gorgeous. They are buttoned up and being winterized now. I was talking to Dusty, the athletic administrator over there, and they're getting it all winterized, which makes me slightly sad, but that's what we're all doing in our homes as well. But to that end, we had always planned to do the bleachers separately from the overall package that was done with regard to the paving and the netting and all the fencing and all of that. So this is a purchase for four, just, I know I said the word four twice, but four row, sorry here.
Boy.
Bleachers, if you can follow that. But we do have the pads that were poured, that was part of the project. We have those concrete pads ready for the bleachers to come in. So we have from GT Grandstands, the quote is in your packet. It is from the interlocal purchasing system, better known as TIPS, contract pricing, so that fulfills the board's obligation to bid. We have four-row, I've talked to Dusty, the athletic administrator. He's excited, he says that'll work just great. And we have the cost for the materials delivered and installed on those pads for $43,690.
Okay. Are there questions or comments on this item?
These will look very similar to what you see at Stevenson as far as just kind of what it looks like.
That's gonna be
you
my
know.
question.
Okay.
Yeah, like aluminum bleachers.
Yep.
I think Stevenson is 5-row. Franklin said they were fine with 4-row because quite frankly, the conversations we were having was that many parents like to come and bring their
own chairs.
Yeah, they're chairs. It's really for tournaments, when others come in from other schools. The parents kind of like to come with their, and they like to stand by the fence or sit in their lounge chair. They bring themselves. So 4 of these are plenty of seating.
Okay. Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you. We're purchasing them now. When do we plan, are we installing them in the spring?
I do
is
not
that-
have an estimated time of delivery. I can
Okay.
check on that and get it for you. I'll talk to Mr. Lau. He's the
Well,
one.
that's
that
okay. I
kept
just
us
want to
well.
make sure, we wouldn't be putting these up before the winter, correct?
If there's already ice and snow on the ground,
Yeah,
then we will have to.
We would wait.
Yeah, we would have to clear that, because them being outside.
They actually do have
18
it.
weeks.
18, okay. There you
oh,
go.
so it'll be a while.
About 18 weeks.
Okay,
it's
oh
got
yeah,
some time.
10 to 12,
Yeah.
yeah.
So lead time on that, so we should have that without much issue, but these are obviously meant to be outside 365.
Okay.
Mrs. Acosta?
Thank you. And just to clarify, the first step is already done in that we have the concrete pads down?
Everything's already.
Okay.
That was part of the original paving package that Nagel had done.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on these? So this is going to just finish off this set of tennis courts similarly to Churchill and Stevenson. Terrific.
And that will be the
We'll
end
be done
of
with tennis
tennis
courts for a
courts for a
while.
little bit.
Yes, uh-huh. All righty, and we will need this on the agenda for next week.
Please.
Okay. Next and last item for building and site is 5H, modular wall purchase for Randolph Elementary School.
Modular wall sounds like something made up, but that's why I put I gave you the picture in your packet. It's really glass walls. We have these in a couple of spaces. Actually, Randolph itself has them for their center program in the opposite side of their library, if you're familiar with Randolph's media center area there. So the backstory here is that there is need for space. There are many ancillary staff at Randolph. As you know, we have our center program there. English learners we have at Randolph, that we have 2 different staff members that come in to work with them. We have coaches, instructional coaches that move from building to building. And right now, we don't have any free space for some of these folks. So working with the principal, Julie Lynn, we took a look around the building, and since this is an item that we've used previously already with success, and it's not something that is construction, we're not tying into the walls, it is a system, and that's the modular part, where the company can come in and quickly put up these glass walls. We'll have frosting on them for some privacy, and in the open area, when you walk into Randolph, it's a quite large lobby area. Right now, they have some furniture that lay around. They're more than happy to move that out of the way. And we have a couple of spots on a wall for an 8x8 and a 10x10. And the planned use for these are the 8x8 modular office space would be for any floating staff member, and they do have them in the building. The coaches, some other folks at this, can have a space where they will have a phone, a desk, a chair, a computer, and they can work. Now, it sounds like, boy, that's the lobby, that's got to be crazy. If you've been in Randolph, it's not. It's a pretty quiet area. They just need a spot to work and have a little bit of privacy. The 10x10 will be used generally by the English learning staff with the students. They usually bring 3, 4, maybe 5 students together, and they run through some mini lessons. Again, they aren't the ones making a lot of noise, and that hall wouldn't be distracting to them. These systems, they will account for HVAC system because they are open at the top, so air can flow. We don't have to worry about putting somebody in a box that doesn't have any circulation or ventilation. It all will flow through. Again, we have a setup like this at Hoover and already at Randolph. They've been successfully used, and I think it's just respectful for the staff to have an appropriate place to work either on their own or with a handful of students.
Okay, sounds good. Comments or questions on Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. Phil, do we have to order furniture for this, or does the school already have something that?
We have the horseshoe tables that they're already using. These folks are already there working. I'm just not happy with where they're working, on the stage, or in a room that was supposed to be a storage space, things like that. So we can use that same furniture in these spaces.
Okay.
If I find we're short somewhere, I'll come back to it.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Other comments or questions? Thank you for continuing to work with our staff to tweak areas that need to be tweaked and get appropriate places for our folks to work.
We have a good problem in Livonia Public Schools, and that is we have great ancillary staff that help our students with whether it's emotional or other issues, social emotional, English language learners, et cetera. It's a good problem to have, to say, we'll get you the space to work with those students.
Excellent. All righty. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
And this is on the agenda for next week, obviously. Okay. President Johnson, that concludes Building and Site.
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. That'll take us to item 6, our Policy Committee. Mrs. Frank is not here yet. I don't think we have any.
We do
Thank
not,
you,
President
policy.
Johnson.
Thank you, Mrs. Oquist. That'll take us to item 7, Personnel Committee, Mrs. Bradford.
We do not have any items for tonight.
We do
Thank
not.
you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradford. That'll take us to item 8, our Legislative Committee, Mrs. Jarvis.
The Legislative Committee has no agenda items tonight.
Very good. So that is the end of our agenda for this evening. Thank you for everyone watching at home, all of our cabinet for being here, and all of our presenters tonight. And we will say good evening.
Do we want to stay on
President
camera to go into closed session?
Oh, yes. We do have a closed session that we'll be going into in just a few moments. I don't think we need.
I can make the motion. We need a motion.
We need a motion. Well, we have to do our roll call first.